My name is Lilyvale and I was the family disappointment. At least, that's what my younger sister Emma made sure everyone knew, especially when she had an audience. The last time she did it, we were at her company's cocktail party, hosted on the rooftop of some sleek downtown high-rise. She was all elegance in a tight black dress, oozing ambition, while I stood in the corner, nursing a ginger ale in my simple blue blouse and slacks, clothes that had seen better days. "Lily fixes microwaves," Emma said, flashing a smile that felt more like a blade. "Not just microwaves, air fryers, blenders, toasters, anything broken, she can unscrew it." Laughter rippled through the crowd. I didn't laugh. I'd heard worse, but something about her words that night, so casual, so dismissive, made me feel small, like a joke. Just as I'd turned to leave, the double doors swung open, and in walked Mara Kingsley, the CEO of one of the region's fastest-growing tech firms. I wasn't always the family disappointment. Once upon a time, I was the shining star, the one with the top grades, the college scholarship, the law school admission letter pinned to the fridge like a prize. Our parents were proud. Emma, back then, still had braces and those wide eyes that followed me everywhere. She used to say, "I want to be just like you." That didn't last long. At 22, everything cracked. It started with Susan getting sick. Robert tried to hide how serious it was, but I knew. I deferred my first semester at law school to stay home and help. Then, Susan passed quietly, like she'd just slipped away, and suddenly, I wasn't a future attorney anymore. I became the one folding hospital bills and cooking frozen dinners for a father who'd forgotten how to speak. Emma didn't handle it well. She threw herself into school, into dance, into pretending everything was normal. I didn't blame her. We were just two girls trying to survive in a house that echoed with silence. I never did go back to law school. The scholarship expired. I took a job at a front desk to pay the utilities. And when Robert's grief turned to drinking, when the house started falling apart, leaky faucets, short circuits, a broken AC, I did what I had to do. I learned how to fix things. You'd be surprised how empowering it feels to hold a voltage tester and figure out what's wrong with something no one else can make work. I watched videos, I read manuals, I made mistakes, burned out 2 hair dryers before I got it right. But eventually fixing things stopped being about the house. It became my livelihood. I left the front desk job and opened a repair service. Just me, a secondhand workbench, and a big blue "Vale Fixes It" sign I painted myself. This was who I became, someone who fixed things, not just for the house, but for everyone else's broken pieces. But in the eyes of my family, I was still the girl who had let her dreams slip away. And Emma? She was becoming the perfect success story, everything I once dreamed of, now in her hands. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Every time I handed back a working toaster to an elderly woman who didn't want to buy a new one, I felt something law school never gave me: peace. It wasn't just fixing appliances, it was knowing I was helping someone who couldn't afford new, who just needed something to work again. But none of that mattered to my family. To them, I was just the other daughter. At Thanksgiving dinners, I sat there quietly, listening to Emma sparkle. She dazzled everyone with her corporate strategy and sleek outfits, with her carefully curated LinkedIn profile and impressive job title. Emma worked for Mara Kingsley, a name that was practically royalty in the corporate world, someone who made headlines. Every time Emma spoke about Mara, it was with reverence, like I was supposed to be impressed. I didn't mind being invisible, not really. But Emma, she never made it easy. "At least I didn't waste my degree tightening screws," she'd say, her voice all sweetness, her smile like a challenge. "Some of us have clients who don't live in retirement homes." She'd say it loud enough for everyone to hear, daring me to react. I never did. What good would it do? What she didn't know, and what none of them knew, was that over the years I'd quietly built a client base. One of those clients, through a logistics partner, happened to be MK Tech Systems. That's right, Mara's company. They sent us busted devices from their warehouse team, and while no one from the top ever contacted me directly, the work was steady, and the pay was solid. It allowed me to save, upgrade my equipment, and even hire a part-time assistant. No fanfare, no public recognition, just me, fixing what was broken. But Emma? She sprinted ahead. She posted about conferences, about promotions, about her perfect boss babe life. The more she climbed, the more I felt myself shrink in her eyes. The more she made me feel small, the more I let her. I never corrected her. I'd learned long ago that when someone wants to look down on you, it's not your job to fix it. Time has a way of straightening out perspective better than any argument ever will, but I couldn't help but wonder, would she ever see me? Would my quiet success ever mean anything to her? The thing about quiet success is that no one really notices it. Not at first, anyway. My shop wasn't flashy. It was tucked between a laundromat and a tailor in a faded brick building on the east side of town. The sign out front was hand-painted, chipped from the weather, imperfect but real, much like the work I did. Inside, the floor squeaked and the coffee was always lukewarm, but it was mine. I built it up piece by piece. Literally, I refurbished shelves, installed my own lighting, even wired in extra outlets when I started handling more industrial repairs. The space wasn't grand, but it felt like home. It was where I got to work with my hands, do what I loved, and make a living. People came in for broken remotes, busted blenders, faulty toasters, but when they left, they often carried something more. A story. I got to know their names, their grandkids, and how their lives paused when something broke. I heard about the old man's weekly ritual of watching the news with his wife's favorite lamp beside him, now fixed and glowing once more. I heard about the single mother who had to juggle her kid's schedule with her online classes, and how grateful she was when I fixed her laptop in time for her midterms. There was something deeper in this work than anyone could have understood. A connection, a purpose. And that gave me something law school never could: peace. But our family? They didn't see it that way. At Thanksgiving dinners, I was the other daughter. While Emma dazzled everyone with her job at Mara Kingsley's firm, her sleek outfits and polished LinkedIn profile, I quietly fixed appliances in the corner of the room. Emma always took the stage, and I was always the invisible one. She worked for Mara Kingsley, the kind of boss who made headlines, someone whose name was whispered with awe in our family. I never minded being overlooked, but Emma made it difficult to stay in the shadows. At every family gathering, she'd say things like, "At least I didn't waste my degree tightening screws," or, "Some of us have clients who don't live in retirement homes." She said these things with a smile, as if they were jokes, daring me to react so she could accuse me of being overly sensitive. I never took the bait. What she didn't know, and what none of them knew, was that, over the years, I had quietly built a client base. One of those clients was MK Tech Systems, Mara Kingsley's company. The devices they sent us for repair were from their warehouse team. At first it seemed like nothing more than another order, but as the work came in steady and the pay stayed reliable, I realized the extent of our involvement. We were fixing units for a major tech company, one that Emma admired so much. I never told Emma, not because I was hiding it, but because it didn't matter to her. It wasn't the glamorous story she could use to boost her own image. I just kept doing what I did best, fixing what was broken. Meanwhile, Emma's life continued to spiral upwards. She attended conferences, gave talks, and posted about her boss babe life on social media. The more she climbed, the smaller I seemed to become in her eyes. I let her think that. I'd learned a long time ago that when someone wants to look down on you, it's not your job to correct them. Time has a way of straightening out perspective better than any argument ever will. But there were moments, quiet moments, when I remembered that I wasn't just fixing things, I was building something of my own, something Emma would never understand. I never needed her validation. I had my own worth. I had my own business, my own clients, and I was proud of that. I had employees now, 2 part-timers who respected me, a retired electrician named Sam, and a high school kid named Miles who wanted to learn. I paid them well, and they helped me expand. Family holidays grew smaller. Our father Robert moved to Arizona, stopped asking questions, and started sending back photos of sunsets. I sent him birthday cards, and he sent back silence. It was clear that Emma and I were drifting further apart. Then came the unexpected call. Emma invited me to one of her company's cocktail mixers. "You should come," she said, her voice casual, but there was a hint of something else. "It'll be fun." I was surprised. "Why me?" I asked. She laughed. "Why not? You never come to these things. It's time you met some people who might inspire you to level up a bit." That should have been the first red flag. But I said yes, not because I needed her validation, but because I had a feeling that time was about to straighten out some perspectives, and I was ready to let it. I showed up 10 minutes early. Emma's company had rented the rooftop of an upscale downtown building, the kind of place with string lights, imported wines, and glass panels instead of rails, so you could see the whole city twinkling beneath your heels. It was the kind of event that screamed sophistication, where everyone had carefully crafted personas to match the polished exterior. People floated around in expensive suits and sharp heels, laughing with the kind of practiced ease that comes from networking more than living. I wore a navy dress I'd had for years, clean, simple, nothing flashy. I did my makeup the way I always did, just enough to look awake, to fit in but not to stand out. A small peace offering, I thought, as I carried a gift bag with some locally made coffee Emma liked when we were younger. When I walked in, She didn't notice me right away. She was surrounded by her colleagues. Her voice, the loudest in the group, hands animated, posture perfect. I stood off to the side, sipping club soda, watching her perform. The same Emma I had always known. At the center of it all, commanding attention. Eventually, she caught sight of me. "Lily," she said, drawing attention, the words slicing through the air. "You came." Heads turned and I felt it, the shift in the room. That pause, that moment when a crowd evaluates someone and files them under not important. She gestured toward me like she was introducing a minor character in her carefully constructed story. "Everyone, this is my sister. She's in hardware repair." The way she said it, soft, deliberate, was like a label, a challenge daring me to correct it. I forced a smile. "I run a repair and refurbishment shop," I said, keeping it simple. "Yes." One of her colleagues blinked. "Like for computers, among other things?" Emma laughed, her voice rising to that familiar pitch. "She's being modest. She can fix just about anything with a plug," she said, turning to her friend. "She's like a walking warranty." The crowd chuckled. I didn't, but I nodded, still smiling. It hurt more than I cared to admit the way she reduced me to a punchline. I could feel a sharp edge in my chest, but I buried it. Emma wasn't finished. She turned to a man in a gray blazer. "Ben, remember I told you about my sister? She's the one who fixed Susan's old blender instead of letting her upgrade. I swear Lily would rather fight technology than embrace it." More laughter. It felt like a slap, but I didn't react. I opened my mouth, but I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have a comeback, but because I knew nothing I said would change anything, not in that moment. So I turned toward the table, pretending to study the hors d'oeuvres, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. And that's when the elevator chimed, and the rooftop grew quieter, not silent, but there was a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The crowd parted instinctively, a path cleared for her. She stepped into the room, and everything about her presence demanded attention. Mara Kingsley. She wore a burgundy pantsuit, her hair slicked back, her face unreadable, but confident. It was the kind of presence that made everyone stand a little straighter, their conversations faltering in her wake. She didn't pause to scan the crowd for Emma. No, Mara walked straight toward me. "Lily," she said, holding out her hand with a smile that felt real. "I didn't expect to see you here." I shook her hand firmly. "Neither did I," I replied, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Emma's voice cracked behind me. You two know each other?" she asked, the disbelief clear in her tone. Mara turned toward her. "Your sister is the reason your logistics team has been able to maintain a 97% equipment turnaround," Mara said, her voice carrying over the conversation. "You've been using her services for 2 years now. I assumed you knew." The silence that followed was exquisite. Emma blinked, her face draining of color. "I thought that was a third-party contractor," Emma stammered. "It is," Mara said, "but Lily's shop is the one they sub to. She solved problems your team couldn't even diagnose." Mara turned back to me, her voice warm but professional. "We've never met in person, but your work speaks volumes." "Thank you." I felt it, the shift in the room. No more forced laughs, no more small talk. The attention that had once been so comfortably placed on Emma was now, unmistakably, on me. Emma stood frozen, her eyes wide, her lips parted in stunned silence. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I didn't need to. I just offered a polite smile, because I wasn't there to win. I wasn't there to make anyone feel small. I was just there to witness the truth walk into the room, wearing a pantsuit and a name badge, shifting the balance that had always tilted toward Emma. It was Mara who gave me the moment I had been quietly waiting for. And it wasn't about the praise. It wasn't about the validation. It was about Emma finally being forced to see what I had built, to see that I wasn't just fixing microwaves in a corner somewhere. No, I was fixing things that mattered, things that Emma, in all her glossy ambition, never took the time to understand. In that moment, the narrative shifted. The room that had once laughed at my expense now seemed to reconsider the value of what I did. They realized that success isn't just about the flashy titles and the glamorous life. Sometimes success is in the quiet work, the work that doesn't demand attention but still makes the world a little bit better. The truth had finally been revealed, and it wasn't just about what I did for a living. It was about who I was. And for the first time in my life, I felt seen. After that moment, something in the room shifted, not just for Emma, but for everyone. People who had ignored me earlier now approached with cautious curiosity. They asked about my shop, the kind of work I did, and how I got started. I answered simply, without embellishment. The truth didn't need decoration. It just needed space to stand on its own. Mara passed by again later, this time with a drink in hand and a quieter tone. "You've got a good eye," she said. "I've looked at your diagnostics. Your team solves things our engineers give up on." "I appreciate that," I said. "I have good people." She smiled, then leaned in slightly. "I value precision and loyalty. If you ever want to skip the middleman, let me know." She handed me a card, sleek and embossed. I tucked it into my purse without looking at it. "I'll think about it," I said, offering a polite smile. She nodded and walked on, leaving me standing there, not quite sure what to make of the unexpected opportunity she had just handed me. Emma stood about 10 feet away, watching. When I made eye contact with her, she didn't look away this time. I walked over slowly. No point in dragging it out. She was gripping the rim of her wineglass like it was anchoring her. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. She searched my face, maybe looking for anger, for forgiveness, or perhaps an opening for some kind of reconciliation. "I didn't mean to embarrass you," she added. "Yes, you did," I said, not harshly, just factually. "You just didn't expect it to backfire." She flinched a little. I let the silence stretch, not for her benefit, but for my own. "Look," she said after a beat, her voice smaller now. "I've worked hard to get where I am. You dropped everything and just settled. I didn't understand it." "No," I said calmly. "You didn't look closely enough to try." She blinked at me, a little lost. But I wasn't finished. "I didn't settle," I added, my voice steady. "I rebuilt." She swallowed hard, and I saw the walls crumble, just a little. "I guess I always thought you gave up," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded. A lot of people did. That's the luxury of distance. I didn't say it to hurt her, I said it because it was the truth. Sometimes people build their stories about you around the pieces that serve them best. And when you grow in silence, it confuses them. It threatens their version of how the world is supposed to work. Emma glanced around, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you come tonight to prove something?" I actually laughed. Just once, quietly and briefly. "No, I came because you asked." She looked down at her wineglass, suddenly very interested in the swirling red liquid. I didn't press her. She was already carrying enough embarrassment for both of us. And honestly, I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. "Lily," she said, finally looking up, "I really am sorry." I nodded, accepting it. "Good, now do better." She nodded slowly, a small movement, but I could see the gears turning. Whether she'd change or not, that was her journey, not mine. I said goodbye a little while later, no dramatic exit, no parting shot, just a quiet farewell. As I rode the elevator down, I thought about Mara's card. I still hadn't looked at it. I didn't need it to mean anything more than it already had, because that night wasn't about opportunity or exposure or vindication, it was about balance, about watching the scale tilt back to where it should have been all along. People say revenge is sweet, but this wasn't revenge, it was just the truth, undeniable, unpolished, and overdue. And sometimes, that's more powerful than anything else. I didn't take Mara's job offer. I still have the card. It's in a drawer in my shop, tucked beneath a stack of receipts and old instruction manuals. Every now and then, I look at it, not because I regret saying no, but because it reminds me that I didn't need to be discovered to matter. Some people climb ladders, others build solid ground. I chose the ground. My shop is still running, busier now. The exposure helped, sure. A few new clients came in because of the party, and word spread a little further, but that's not what I hold on to. What stays with me are the quiet wins. The 80-year-old man who brings me his late wife's antique mixer and thanks me with tears in his eyes, the single mom whose only laptop I managed to bring back to life before her online midterms, the teenage assistant I hired last summer who now wants to start his own repair truck. That's the legacy I care about. Emma and I talk more now, carefully. Not like before. Not like sisters who braid each other's hair and share secrets, but like people who are trying, people who've seen each other clearly for the first time and are still learning what that means. She hasn't mocked me since. Sometimes she even asks for advice, small things like budgeting or how to fix her thermostat. I answer, not because I need her validation, but because I've let go of needing anything from her at all. What I've learned more than anything is that respect doesn't arrive with applause. It comes in the quiet after people finally stop talking long enough to listen. I never raised my voice. I never corrected the room. I never shouted, "Look at me." But when the moment came and truth walked through the door, I didn't flinch. And neither did my worth, because it was never missing, just underestimated. So if anyone ever asks what I do, I tell them the truth. I fix what's broken, and I don't just mean appliances.